Thanks very much. Good evening, everybody. Look, first of all, I think it's been really useful to be last because we've been able to look at all of the realities of the property market and where it's potentially heading. From my point of view, that's perfect because it kind of gives you all the negatives and actually how to package yourself up properly to make a successful property portfolio moving forward. The landlords have been stung heavily, no doubt, no question, certainly over since 2016. I think what is important to take from it is how you re-gear yourselves and how you go again. Property is a good place to be. It works, you can see it, you can touch it, you can feel it, and it's how you prepare yourself moving forward. Interest rates are high at this moment in time, higher than they have been for a long time. So when you're buying, consider where we're at this moment in time, and actually that should put you on the right foot moving forward. Of course, we don't know what's going to happen with potential change of government, but I'll go through this evening where interest rates are at, how they're priced, how lenders work, and actually what the money markets think of where the market's going to go. So we all have predictions. The money markets must be, or should be, relatively shrewd, which I'll go through how lenders are pricing at this moment in time, because it should give you real confidence, actually, in my opinion, of where to buy property, how to buy property. So we know the pitfalls with tax. We'll know in a few moments, hopefully, how lenders stress test. We know that moving forward, you should be potentially buying in, or you should be buying in limited company. So if I can kind of glue all of the things you've heard together this evening, that should give you some confidence of what actually you should be looking for in the property market, what yields you should be aiming, what return on investment, whether you should look at HMOs, how you should do your properties with fire doors and put in the alarms, insulating properties properly so you get the EPC standards right. So all of these things, whilst they sound really heavy and potentially doom and gloom, actually for me that's a huge positive. That puts you in the step to say, right, this is how I buy properties moving forward. Do we need to dispose of some of these assets to get it right moving forward? So that's what I take so far of this evening. So I'm conscious it can be quite heavy. So I'll give you an update on the market, the challenges, like everybody's covered so far this evening. More importantly, as a result of the challenges, what the opportunity is, certainly from a lending perspective, and how we can look to grow your portfolio moving forward if that is something you're looking to do. A little bit about us. I think I've done it before. That's our beautiful offices in London. We've got a little office over in Shrewsbury on the business park there. We've been going since 1999. We're something called a directly authorised brokerage. Most brokers locally, just to give you some background, are generally on a panel. So they'll get to deal with 20, 30 different providers. Being directly authorised, we get to deal with about 140 different lenders. And that's really important in the current climate. So some of the value is with small regional building societies, with private banks, and with specialist lenders. And not a lot of brokers get access to that, and that's the beauty of being based in central London. It's a completely different beast in how you get things to work. We all know where interest rates are at, we're seeing it day to day, but what's really important, I think, to go through and something to keep a real keen eye on is something called SONIA swaps rates. So whoever came to the last presentation would have seen this. Really basic layman terms, what a SONIA swaps rate is, which you can see in the top corner here, is essentially how banks trade, and we get a good indication of what the money market's going to look like and what interest rates are going to be like moving forward. So last week they talked about inflation being at 10.11%. Swaps rates, a couple of weeks ago, the 24th of March for a 5-year swap was at 3.51%. What that means is that banks, I'm NatWest, you're Santander, I've got £200 million spare, I would sell it to you based on a swap rate, and then it's sold out on the money markets with a bit of a margin. So you'd have seen in the press, 5-year fixed rates, 3.8%. That meant that banks were buying money in at 3.5% from one another. Yeah? So SONIA swaps are really important because this is to do with confidence in the market and where the banks or sensible people, I guess, or not so sensible compared to 2009, but where they think the money market's going to go. So if you look up here, 1 and 2 year swaps rates are quite punchy at this moment in time. Yeah, so you can see 4.7 and 4.43. So short-term finance at the moment is quite expensive. And the reason why it's expensive is because economists, the markets, think that the next 2 years are going to be relatively difficult. But I can buy a 5-year swap at 3.93. So that means between years 2 and years 5 that the market's likely to drop slightly, so we're going to see periods of lower interest rates. If you look at the long-term swaps, 7, 10, 15, 30 years, you can see that we're only in a relatively difficult period now. So all of this that we're talking about this evening, this is what the money markets think. It's not fact, but obviously they're gambling, they're putting all of their money and selling money at a certain rate. The reason why this is important is to give you, so you can try and plan a little bit with where the markets, where other people think the markets are going to go. So when the mini budget happened and we did a seminar actually around that time, September last year, SONIA swaps rates went up to about 6%. And you remember at that period, loads of banks pulled out of the market. The reason why they pulled out of the market was too expensive for them to buy debt to sell to somebody else. They're not going to sell money to buy to let landlords at 6.5%, 7%. You can't get a return on your investment. Since Hunt's come in and they've talked about tax increases, really boring things, it's actually settled the markets. The Bank of England's job really, it's kind of a crude way of putting it, is PR. It's they're the front end. They're talking about what's happening in the market to calm down inflation. Yep. So the Bank of England base rate is likely to go up again in May because as a result of inflation being at 10.11% last week. So it's likely to go up again to calm inflation. But actually you can see 5-year swaps rates is less than the Bank of England base rate. So that should give you an idea of actually how banks price. It's really important to keep an eye on those SONIA swaps because that will give you some comfort on actually what's happening because that's what banks are trading at. What's important this evening to go through? So buy-to-let interest rates at this moment in time, lenders are doing everything they possibly can to get buy-to-let debt out of the door because it's such a difficult period. So what you're seeing at the moment, to get something called stress testing, this is what's really important about if you're looking to grow your portfolio. Since 2016, lenders have focused on stress testing. It's really, really important. And the reason why they're focused on stress testing is for the position that we find ourselves in now, where you can't write off your interest anymore and interest rates are higher. So lenders have been stress testing for quite some time in your personal name at about 5%, and then they stress tested again at 145%. So this day came where whilst you were paying interest rates at 2.5%, the stress test was almost in the position that we're in today. So lenders are, if you've got deals coming to an end and you're thinking, shit, I can't finance, I can't do anything, lenders are doing everything they can to make sure people who have got mortgages coming to an end is on a like-for-like basis. You should, in theory, still be able to remortgage, or you do a product transfer. So stress testing at the moment, this will lead on, the HMO chat was brilliant because stress testing is important for people trying to get as much debt out of a property as possible. And that's why it's important to understand what stress testing is. So I'll give you a very quick example. So I said before, lenders have been stress testing at historically about 4.5% at 145. Currently, in your personal name, a stress test is probably about 5.5 times at 145. What that means, to bring it to life, if you have £750 rent a month in your personal name, the maximum loan that you would get, based on a stress test that we mentioned there, is £124,000. Yeah? Because lenders have put those stress tests in place, it's a bit boring, but bear with me, to make sure that properties are affordable, that you can pay your tax, and you're making a return on your investment, which is key. One of the beauties of buying in a limited company is the stress tests are far better, because of course you can write the interest off as a tax deductible cost. So lenders give you more favourable stress testing. If you're buying in a limited company now, on exactly the same basis, the stress test is slightly better. Based on £750 rent, you get a loan more like £137,000, so £13,000 more, so you can gear higher. So if you're looking to grow a portfolio, you know pretty much straight away that you're going to need to be buying a limited company. rather than your personal name because of the stress testing. Yep. So the only reason why I'm highlighting this is it's a quick 2-minute phone call in to understand what the stress tests are looking like at that moment in time. So you know when you're going to buy to a property, you automatically assume I can get 75% loan to value on a buy to let. Truthfully, it's quite difficult to do that unless you start looking at HMOs or really high yielding properties. It still works in Telford, by the way, just. If you're buying at 175, you should be getting a rent of circa 750, I would guess. You're getting not far off 70% loan to value. But we're one of the few areas where it's still just scraping through. If you're buying slightly higher quality properties, the London property market, for example, is completely on its arse because you can't get anywhere near the loan size that you need to be able to buy decent buy-to-let properties there because of this stress testing. The opportunity, I think it's really important. So again, going through what we've discussed this evening, what may seem quite negative, but it's the fact. That really creates huge opportunity, lots of opportunity. One of the big things is landlords exiting the market, selling at auction. It gives the new breed of landlord an opportunity. That's a great thing. It gives you the opportunity to sell properties off and re-gear and refocus. You might consider buying a holiday let, you might consider buying a HMO to get your property to work right. So there's opportunity as a result of everything else that's going on in the market. You then know that you're buying with a 5% interest rate and you know to buy in a limited company, so you're getting it right. Another huge opportunity is buying properties with low EPCs. This will happen at some stage where it's going to get to an EPC standard C and above, and it's really, really difficult to do, by the way. But that bad press around the EPC side of things, people are going to dispose and think, oh, it's not worth the hassle. So that creates another layer of opportunity. And there's the finance out there, and you highlighted it perfectly before about bridge to let. It's the most phenomenal product that allows you to buy rundown properties, you get the funds to do the works, and you get a mortgage on exit. So I'm conscious of time, so I'm having to race through this. But mortgage lenders are so creative now, so creative to trying to get things to work. It's not as rigid as people think. Everybody will lend you money, it's just at what cost. And if the project's if it's profitable enough, you can make it work. HMOs, so it's an area that's been of high discussion this evening. It's not an area, we own quite a few properties, not an area that I ventured into, but I can see the reason why people are moving into HMOs, particularly if they're looking to try and grow a portfolio. Because we mentioned before about the stress testing. I mentioned here if it was £750 a rent and your personal name you get 124,000. On a HMO, if you're doubling that rent, guess what? You can borrow a lot more. So that's one of the reasons people have shifted into HMOs, is to gear to be able to move their portfolios and grow portfolios a lot quicker, because traditionally it's been quite a slow process for people to grow. So that's where HMOs are a bigger market. Equally, being in cost of living crisis, somebody renting at £750 a month for a 2-bed semi-detached, then their bills on top and their income's probably 23,000, 24,000. It's a big ask. So all of a sudden that kind of market was traditionally going straight into housing, a 1 or 2-bed flat and with all the costs. They're halving their costs by renting rooms. So you can see why that market has boomed. But one of the reasons from our point of view, a lending perspective, is more to do with actually they can gear and they can grow their portfolio. Holiday lets, I mean, it's a big opportunity either way. It's not an easy market, by the way, holiday lets. It is tax efficient. There is, and again, the reason why people are going down the holiday let route is the gearing side of things. You can get more out of a property. Lenders assess with holiday lets on the high, medium and low season over a 30-week period. So again, if I go back to this, you might be getting £750 a month rent. All of a sudden on paper, it's showing you can get £30,000 a year for the same property. Let me tell you now, it's hard work. You can't get cleaners on a Sunday afternoon. You end up doing it yourself. So yeah, I'm convinced I am a high-performing mortgage broker cleaning out someone else's. Yeah. So there you go. So as a result of all of this, is opportunity. Take that into consideration. So all of the negativities, be calculated. We know EPCs are changing, we know interest rates are high. Guess what? Factor that into your buying model, and it will work. How can I grow my portfolio? So, Bridge to Let is an amazing product, and it will take me quite some time to explain, but very, very quickly, you buy a rundown property, the bank gives you a percentage of the rundown property value. You give them a schedule of works to say how much it's going to cost to do it. They say, great, based on the schedule of works, the property is going to be worth X at the end of it. I'm going to give you the money to buy it, I may even give you some money to do the works, and then I'll give you a mortgage on exit. Making it sound really, really simple, but the beauty of that is, and what used to happen with a lot of transactions, if it wasn't linked on a bridge to let basis, you go and buy a property at auction, you do the property up, the valuer from another lender would come out and say, yeah, I can't see how you've added enough value to that, and they downvalue the property. Common occurrence. You've probably seen it if you've done that before. Horrific. And you've said to the valuer, given comparable evidence and everything, but they're risk-based assessors, valuers are. So bridge to let is a seamless process. It gives you the money to buy it, some money to refurb it, but they also give you the exit mortgage. Build to let's become a big one, and Nock's have quite a few little self-build plots. Self-build plots probably don't work in the same way, but what we are noticing, because we do a lot of development finance, private finance, that the cost of build is reducing drastically now the supply chain's eased up. So build to let is opening up again now. Let's get a contract builder in there. Again, it's exactly the same as bridge to let. You get 100% of the build costs. It's a really great way of doing it, and you get the accommodation to exactly the way you want. So you might build a little multi-unit freehold block. And that's where there's some opportunity, is where people who have bought land and had poor planning, or architects, they didn't really want to pay chunky fees, and they might have paid just £1,500 to get the most basic planning applications submitted. And there's potentially opportunity to go, instead of that detached house in the middle of those two houses, I might get 5 apartments in there. So it's just being slightly more open to how I can get things to work in the current climate. I'm conscious this isn't all about you thinking I'm some kind of property professional. I'm trying to give you some ideas on actually what you can finance. There's so many creative ways that you can buy properties and make things work. Building equity into your current property, your portfolio. When they become vacant, you can, instead of sitting another tenant straight back into the property, at that stage you can tidy the property up, put a new kitchen in, new bathroom, rather than it just leaving it the way that it was, and it being 120,000. By doing some basic works to it, all of a sudden might be worth 150 when in that void period. Do the works to it and release equity out to go towards another property. There is going to be some, for the next 2 years at least, some unfortunately broken individuals as a result of what's going on in the climate. Again, it sounds massively ruthless, but it's taking advantage of that. Release and equity, that kind of links into the top side of it. And it sounds really, really basic, but buying well. If you can put yourself into a position where you've got cash funds available and you can complete on things quickly, that's where you can buy well. So I mentioned, put it in before when you were presenting that, again, with creative finance, there's one lender that will take a second charge on your existing portfolio and give you a 2-year facility, and you only pay interest on it when you draw on the facility. It's like having a huge overdraft. So you pay something called a non-utilisation fee. So the money's sat there, but you're paying a very basic non-utilisation fee of, let's say, 0.2%. So you can have £500,000 sat there paying 0.2% a month on it, and when you draw on it, that's when you trigger the higher interest rate. So it's like a bridging loan secured against your portfolio, but you only pay interest on it when you actually draw it. So it's a really, really brilliant facility. I was conscious I didn't see any of the time things pop up, but I've gone through really quickly there. Rather than talking about specific mortgages, talking about the opportunity and that they all can be financed. The big thing for me is stress testing. That's understanding actually what you're buying and how you go about buying it, rather than just looking at a pretty property. It's really, really important to understand the figures at this moment in time. stress testing your background portfolio. Lenders don't like them to be overly too highly geared, and that really stops you from growing too quickly. But it's more to just touch on the opportunity that's there and how the finance can link into it. Any questions? No? There you go. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.